Hey everybody, happy opening day. That's right, it's finally here. Been waiting way too long for it. Some real baseball action that counts, and a lot of games already in the books. So I'm just going to do some quick reaction here, go over some of the box scores, tell you what's what. So if you didn't get to, check through the box scores yourself yet or didn't catch any of the games, it could also be a nice little recap for you of what's happened so far in day one. The defending champs, Texas Rangers, are just now in the first inning. That game just started. That's the primetime game. And there's three West Coast games later on that are yet to happen. But a lot of the teams have played. Unfortunately, two games have been postponed. We already knew about that yesterday. The Mets Brewers and Braves Phillies. That's unfortunate, but going to happen. Just more baseball to anticipate tomorrow. So most of the other teams have played already. So it's going to go down each of those games, just what stood out, um, good or bad or ugly, and talk about some reaction, what it means for fantasy baseball, if anything. We know it's just one game, but still, it does matter, right? First impressions are everything, and maybe is the start of something for a player who kind of stood out. There's a couple of them, but I think really the story so far of the day is that aces are gonna ace. Now, just because you're starting an opening day doesn't make you an ace. There's a lot of teams that have very questionable number one starting pitchers, and maybe some teams have a guy that wouldn't really be in a rotation in some other teams, but hey, like Oakland's got to throw somebody out there, right? And there's some other pitchers that actually did pretty well for themselves. But for now, if you're hanging in here, watching, leave a comment, give me some questions if you got anything, any reaction here. Rep your team is what I always say. And look, I got the Rangers back there. I think it was only fair that they're defending champs and they're playing right now. That's who I'm repping. But I'm a Marlins fan. I just finished watching. That's why I'm getting on right now. Just finished watching the Marlins lose in extra innings. It was a tight game. Pirates made a comeback and they took it. So props to them. I think the Marlins will be okay. It's just one game, but they dropped it in the 12th inning. I'll get some reaction out of that. But let me go down and talk about the games in order and starting with the very first one. So, the very first game of today was the Angels without Shohei Ohtani. And they're taking on the Orioles, which is a World Series favorite for a lot of people. A lot of the commentators, big names, analysts, just putting Baltimore in the series already. We'll see. We'll see if they can go get over that postseason hump. It's a young team. Didn't really do much to impress last year in the postseason, but hey, that was their first time there, and they got a guy named Corbin Burns, and he's their opening day starter, and you see why. All right, so first things first, though. Our first impression of the baseball season this year, the Angels, was Mike Trout hitting the first home run and going deep. So Mike Trout is an interesting name because I've heard the narrative. I'll just say this: some people with a narrative that now that Shohei Ohtani is gone, and a lot of the media hype that came with it, all the pressure and expectations, whatever, and really nobody expects anything from the Angels this year, and they shouldn't, because if you look at the lineup without Mike Trout, yeah, they're going to need him to carry that team on his back. So some people are like, yeah, you know what, he's going to do it. Now he's going to not only have the responsibility, but all of that the media circus is gone, and he's gonna carry this team, and he's gonna have his best season. He's gonna show out. Maybe he will, but look, here's my thing: is it's not about the narratives; it's always about the numbers. I don't think Mike Trout being really, really good, or even just the best player in baseball, was ever the issue. It's just he's got to stay healthy, and that's why I wasn't really drafting him this year. I know he fell to like the fifth, sixth round. You feel like that's a steal, and it could be. Look, maybe it could be. Even if he just gets you like 120 games, maybe that's still a great value. But he's a year older, and the injuries just keep piling up, and there's always something. So he wants to stay healthy, but you can't, make that just happen, right? He can take care of himself, but his body's going to make that decision. So I'll just say I hope Trout has a great season, even if I don't have him on my teams. But yeah, he did good first impression this season, went deep, but then that was it because Corbin Burnes was dominant. Only gave up that 1 run, but most impressive, 11 strikeouts and 0 walks. I think he was definitely worth an early pick. Obviously, 1 start. And yeah, it was against the Angels, which I just talked about. Not a great offense, but still, Corbin Burnes did exactly what you would want Corbin Burnes to do on opening day. So there you go. That's pretty much how that game went down. Not a lot of offense. And I mean, the Orioles did have some offense, but nobody really stole the show there other than Burnes. Washington, Cincinnati, not maybe one of the big games of the day. This is where we have somebody who maybe worth looking at. Don't go out and rush out and pick up a player because he had a good first game of the season, because absolutely nobody had Nick Martini from Cincinnati, but he was the offense for Cincinnati. There's a lot of interesting names there in that offense, and I've been talking about them all draft season. Of course, we know Elly De La Cruz. I like CES there, and Encarnacion Strand. I think it hit a ton of home runs. Spencer Steer, everybody feels like it's a great fantasy staple. It was the guy who is really only starting because of injuries. Nick Martini with 5 RBIs today. So again, don't rush out and make him your number 1 waiver claim. But take a look here. This is a veteran player who never really cracked a regular lineup, but maybe worth looking at, because I do like that Cincy offense quite a bit. But again, you also have to keep in mind that this was against Washington, which I really think could wind up being the worst team in the majors when it's all said and done. And speaking of that, Frankie Montas, his Reds debut, 6 scoreless. So encouraging, but again, that was against the Nats. So I am definitely taking that one a little bit more with a grain of salt, just because, yeah, that Nats lineup right now is a little rough. All right, now 2 teams that want to contend, kind of going opposite directions, but I think San Diego still has enough, especially now with the pitching that they have, getting Dylan Cease. Yu Darvish was the opening day starter, though, rightfully so. And then going against the Giants, who made a ton of additions, definitely are going to go for it. And Logan Webb, their ace. And this game was just about the pitchers. Both Webb and Darvish were solid, and that's exactly what you expect from them. No big mistakes, not dominant, but just rock solid. So they gave you what you could ask for. It's pretty much what Logan Webb is going to do pretty much throughout the season. And then Darvish, I was a little skeptical about, but so far, so good. We'll see how he goes. Cardinals at the Dodgers. Tyler Glasnow is the one who got the nod. Now, this is not opening day for the Dodgers because, of course, already 2 games in Seoul. But, hey, this is their United States opening day starter. So Glasnow did much better than Yamamoto did. He actually looked really good. 6 innings, only 2 hits allowed, and 1 earned run. So Glasnow, what you would hope from him. I mean, again, talent has never been the issue here. It's just a matter of, can he keep it up over the full season and stay healthy? I think 6 innings is really encouraging to get from him, because they're not going to push him to the 7th or 8th. Hardly, if ever. But yeah, Glasnow was really good, and St. Louis was not good. Here's a really interesting thing. Now, Glasnow only gave up 2 hits. The Dodgers only gave up 3, meaning the Cardinals tallied 3 hits on the day. Paul Goldschmidt had all of them. That's right. Goldie had 3 hits. The entire rest of the Cardinals lineup went 0 for 28. So, again, just 1 game. Going against a tough team. Good pitcher in Glasnow. But not a good look for a team that struggled on offense last year and had some question marks. Victor Scott did start. He did play. But he didn't do anything, obviously. But still, stick with it. I think better times are ahead. I really hope so, because I do have some Victor Scott. I was kind of all in on Jordan Walker this draft season. So let's hope that turns around. Another guy I was pretty high on and was really bad today, really hope this turns around, is Zach Eflin. So Toronto took on Tampa Bay, and yeah, the Jays kind of pounded him. 6 earned runs in less than 6 innings. That's not good, but 3 home runs allowed. Definitely a rough way to start. So Eflin, if you have him, which look, I do in a couple of leagues, you have him as your number 2 or even number 1 pitcher. Yeah, you're behind the 8 ball already in your ratios. I mean, he was really good last year, and he should be just as good this year. Toronto is a good team. Again, opening day. Let's hope that this is not the start of a trend, but again, Eflin, definitely not something you wanted to see. Vlad off to a good start, which is encouraging. Not that anybody was worried about him, but I know some people thinking he was getting a little overdrafted or overhyped or whatever. Oh, come on. I really think by the end of the day, or I should say the end of the season, he's going to be leading the AL in batting average. So good start for him at least. Now, Minnesota KC, if you were expecting offense, then you probably didn't read the scouting report on these teams very well. But also, you were disappointed because this was a pitching duel between Pablo Lopez and Cole Ragans, two guys that a lot of people are super high on. Cole Ragans especially, and I was one of them. Did not let down here. 16 Ks combined between those two pitchers. Those are two pitchers who are going to be among the league leaders in strikeouts by year's end. Really believe it. I mean, of course, Pablo Lopez did that last year, so it would be shocking if he didn't. And then Ragans, what you wanted to see. That Twins lineup was really interesting because some players we thought would be starting weren't, but that's because they were going against a lefty. And so don't read too much into Edouard Julien not being in that lineup. Lefty, yeah, it's going to be a platoon. Julien will not be an everyday player, which is why I really like him. I'm intrigued by him, but I kind of faded him a little bit in drafts. Didn't get too much of him because I really don't know if the counting stats will be there. And when it's all said and done, yeah, he'll get the strong side of it. I think he'll be fine, but just don't want to go overboard for a guy who is going to be sitting against lefties. And we clearly see that. And the same thing with Matt Wallner was not in there today. It was Manny Margot at DH, which I thought was interesting because isn't he more of a glove first kind of guy? I mean, I think you'd put him out there in the field, but anyways, that's what happened there. What also happened was Griffin Jacks did get the save. We know Durant is out, and Baldelli wouldn't commit to a guy not naming a closer, but the very first game, the very first opportunity, I think we all kind of expected it should be Jacks. It was Jacks, so he got the save. And the bad news here, yep, that's right. James says exactly what I was about to say. Royce Lewis. I mean, dude, should we have known better? Am I kicking myself for just thinking he was going to actually have a full season or even a full game? You can't even get one game in this season, really. Now, season's not over. At least I hope not. It was a quad injury. It looked, from what I saw, he was rounding second base and kind of came up funny. So he tweaked something. I think they're saying it was a quad injury, but you never know. And again, you hate to say that this guy's, made of glass or something. So many injuries. And he's had some really serious injuries. He broke his leg at one point a couple years ago. He can't catch a break is right. But we'll see. No official word just yet that I know of. But Royce Lewis, you definitely want to monitor because, man, he really has all the talent in the world. And that's right. First inning took Cole Ragans deep. Cole Ragans was really good. But the very first inning, Royce Lewis showed his talent, and then he showed his injury-prone ways. So, yeah, definitely want to keep an eye on that. I didn't draft Royce Lewis a ton. I was really high on Royce Lewis, but I couldn't get him everywhere. But I definitely have a fair share of him. So, man, Royce Lewis definitely got fingers crossed there. And then next up is that Tigers-White Sox game. Brian was watching that game. You saw Tariq Skubal look really good. Yeah. Kershaw is the one I want to talk about more because Skubal was drafted like an ace almost, more like a number 2 pitcher, but he's drafted pretty high. Kershaw was an afterthought. A lot of people probably didn't even know who the White Sox opening day starter was going to be. It's Garrett Crochet. And he was on my lotto tickets, or what do I call it, players I'm secretly drafting. Well, the secret is out now. He's the number 1 starter for the White Sox. Okay, big deal. But, oh, yeah, he's really good. And he went 6 innings. I mean, this is a guy, remember, barely pitched at all last season. Didn't pitch the season before. He has hardly any innings under his belt from the last couple of years. Never had been a starter in the major league level. This is a reliever who would pitch 1 inning at a time, and now all of a sudden he's the opening day starter. He went 6 innings, struck out 8, didn't walk a batter, only gave up 1 run. That's what you want to see. I mean, the talent has always been there, but yeah, definitely somebody. I mean, I would say if he's out there, go pick him up. Yes. There's not a lot of starting pitchers you're going to find on the waiver wire with upside. Is he going to do this every time out? No, of course not. But look, the Tigers, I think, are a decent offense this year. I really am big on the Tigers. I've been talking about them a lot. So I was very impressed with Crochet as well. Of course, Scubal was impressive. But again, I have to just remind you, it was the White Sox offense, which is not nearly like Nats level offense, but still, it's the White Sox. But yeah, Scubal, he's going to face them a bunch more this year. And that division really, what happened to the AL Central? Cleveland hasn't played yet, but man, looking at that Cleveland lineup, I'm just shocked at all the new names that, dude, these guys really belong in an opening day lineup. But that game is yet to happen. The next game I want to talk about is the one that just wrapped up. That's Pittsburgh and Miami. Already talked about this, that the Pirates did get that extra inning win. As far as the pitchers go, Luzardo was actually pretty good. The Marlins had the lead until late innings. Mitch Keller was not too good. Didn't get lit up, but still not great. They left him out there. They didn't pull him early after giving up a few runs. But this is what I expected from Mitch Keller. I'm not buying into his good first half. I'm buying into his bad second half. I just don't think it's there with him. He'll get you some innings. He'll get you some strikeouts, but I don't think he's helping your ratios. I don't see an ERA below 4, if maybe even 4.5. So, the pitchers did what they do. Jake Berger, 3 hits, 3 RBIs, and didn't even need a home run to do it. Jake Berger, since going to Miami, been really good. He seems to like it there, and there is power in that bat. So he could be a late round steal for sure. The most shocking thing here, and I think just honestly the most surprising thing out of anything that's happened so far today, is Luis Arias not getting a hit. In fact, I want to say, let me double check if I forgot. Did he go over 6? Is that possible? He's not going to get a hit every at bat, and he's not going to go, every single game necessarily with a hit. But yeah, over 6. That was surprising. You don't see that from Arias too often. So yeah, the race for 400, he's already digging himself out of a hole. But I think he'll be okay. And then we got to talk about Houston and the Yankees. So with Houston, they are, hurting at pitching because, Verlander would have been the guy. He's hurt. A lot of pitchers hurt there. Urquidy, not that he has been great lately. And, of course, Lance McCullers. So Framber Valdez, who's been really good, did get the nod, and he wasn't too good today. And you know what? Nestor Cortez wasn't that good either. These are 2 pretty good offenses, but neither pitcher really impressed. The one name that really kind of stuck out here, because nobody really jumped off the chart here, but look at Jake Myers, and I mentioned him a couple of times. Very sneaky, kind of late round pick, if even. Jake Myers did go deep here. Now, Jake Myers is not going to really hit for average, but he does have some power. He's going to be pretty much an everyday player for the Astros. I think that's worth something. So in a deeper league, or if you need a streamer or something like that, I think Jake Myers is a name to kind of just tuck back there. I'm not saying he needs to be rostered outside of like NL-only leagues, but hey, Myers is definitely somebody who's going to get some playing time and show what he can do. Got some more questions here, so appreciate everyone. Let's see. Shades. All right. Who do we like in the head-to-head category league? Got Merrill, Davis, or Meadows. Okay, so those guys, Merrill didn't really do. He had a couple hits in the Soul Series. I don't think he really did anything today. Nobody in the Padres really did much today. Henry Davis, I just watched him in that extra inning opportunity. Didn't look too good in that at bat. I'm huge on Henry Davis this year. And going against the Marlins, look, this might be a good time. Luzardo's really good, but then we're going to get to some inexperienced pitchers that they have, like AJ Puck, But then after that, and he's facing some lefties too, like Puck is lefty. So Meadows did not do anything. Meadows sitting at the bottom of the order, disappointing. And Meadows, now I'm not really convinced whether he's going to be an everyday player. So I'm going to say I'll fade Meadows right now. I know he's got a tastier matchup this week. I mean, at least early this week against the White Sox. But I think right now I'm going to stick with Henry Davis. He's guaranteed to get at bats here. You know, he's catching, which is the thing I like best of all, because he's going to regain that catcher eligibility really soon because Yasmani Grandal, who they for some reason signed, is on the injured list. Davis has been working on this. He's going to be catching, I think, every day. They really don't have anybody that deserves to be catching instead of him. So right now I'll go Davis. Obviously, you're looking at power for him versus Merrill, looking more for average. So if you're feeling like you need, you know, the power more so in terms of the categories, obviously Davis is the pick, and vice versa with Merrill. But I'm still going to lean Davis either way. Yeah, Merrill. In fact, picking up Merrill is a good idea. Wasn't drafted a lot. We weren't sure he was going to make the roster, and then he did. And then starting in center field opening day, and he's going to stick. Now, what you don't like is that he's hitting ninth. That could always change, of course. But yeah, I think he can get you enough hits to help your average out, score some runs too. So Merrill also nice. He probably qualifies at shortstop already in most leagues because that's what he is. And now he's going to add outfield eligibility. So that flexibility will definitely help. But nothing beats having a catcher who can hit, and that's Henry Davis. But Merrill, you know, I had not drafted Merrill. And then my very last draft, which was our endgame draft, in fact, some of you guys might be in it, our endgame league, last pick, took Jackson Merrill. And in fact, I took him over Henry Davis, which I still might have had Henry Davis if he's available. But yeah, Merrill definitely worth picking up. Goldie Pinhead wants to know what I think of Sean Murphy this year. Well, Sean Murphy is a solid catcher. I think I would probably expect kind of what you got last year. I really feel he's a guy who will hit his projections, which is neither good nor bad. I think we've seen what he is. You know, a lot of people feel like in Atlanta he's obviously much better than with Oakland, but he's still going to cede some time to d'Arnaud. He's not going to be out there every single day. Most catchers aren't, so that's not a big deal. I don't know that he has got like an extra, like another level to his power. I really feel like 20 home runs is pretty much it, which again, totally solid. He'll help you with batting average, maybe a little more than some catchers, but not really high end in terms of that. So I think he's just kind of a solid catcher that's like a mid-range, you know, let's say might find it, you know, someone like 6, 7, 8 in terms of overall finish and catchers. So you can roll him out there all season to be totally fine. I don't feel like there's a breakout coming or anything that we haven't seen already. I'll put it that way. Not prime age. His numbers were really good last year, like trust me. But again, even with really good StatCast numbers, 250, that's what you got last year. I think that's what you got the year before too. That's what will get you 20 home runs. Yeah, that's pretty consistently what he does. So basically what you see is what you get. So he's fine. All right, James wants to know who ends up with more points, Vladdy or Olsen? Well, if you're talking points, like in a points league format, like that kind of scoring, I'm going to go with Vlad. Olsen, I mean, Vlad just has better plate discipline, right? In terms of walk and strikeout. Olsen obviously can hit more home runs, but I think Vlad's getting more hits. But also, I'll say this, I do feel like Olsen, I've said this before, not to try to tell any Braves fans or Olsen owners or whatever, but I'm not expecting 50 home runs this year again. I think 40-ish, 40s, low 40s. That's what you should expect. You should always try to be realistic with your expectations and projections. When a guy has a monster year, a career year, you can't expect him to just go out and do it again. Sometimes it happens, but we're talking elite of the elite players. And of course, assuming there's no injuries or anything, Matt Olson not an injury-prone guy. So I think Olson will be so really good. I think Vlad can improve and really should improve on last year's. So if you're talking points, I think I got to go with Vlad. Asking because you traded a got Vlad in deal. You know what? I would have done that. I've been drafting Vlad over Olson. Your head-to-head points leagues, I like that move. That's exactly what I would have done. All right, now from the elite first baseman to Oakland's first baseman. Non-sport Packaday, which, by the way, I poke at the A's all the time, which I think a lot of people do now. Are they even going to be in Oakland next year or ever again? Who knows? Let's just say this. I grew up from Miami, which was I'm a Marlins fan. I grew up a Braves fan because the Marlins didn't exist when I first started watching baseball, and TBS showed every single Braves game, and I watched every single Braves game. So I was a Braves fan, but in the late 80s, I became an A's fan because, yes, they were really good and they were the best team at that point, losing the World Series and then winning the World Series and losing it. But Jose Canseco, yes, Jose Canseco, he's from Miami, he's Cuban. We didn't know any better back then. Everybody loved him. Mark McGwire, the Bash Brothers, had the Bash Brothers poster on my wall. I did. So I was a huge Oakland A's fan for a while. So I really have nothing against the A's. I actually still like the A's. I kind of feel bad for them. But they're terrible. I mean, come on. Like half the players in their roster wouldn't make a roster anywhere else. But thoughts on Ryan Noda? Look, I like that he's leading off. OBP, much more valuable. So I'm glad you said that. If it's OBP over average, yes, that's why they put him at the top of the order. It's definitely not for his speed, and he's not a really high average hitter. I think he'll be fine for average, but OBP. So there you go. Now, I still wouldn't stick him in your lineup unless you really need him at like corner infield or, it's a deep enough league. So I wouldn't go overboard to force him in your lineup, but I think he's definitely rosterable in an OBP league. In your typical like 5x5 roto league, he's like bench depth, a guy that you can plug and play if you need somebody. But that's kind of it. But yeah, in an OBP league, I think you can go with him. All right. Now let's talk about a rebound candidate, maybe. I wants to know about Haniger, comeback player of the year. Well, I think let's start with his first projection for Haniger. This is what it really kind of comes down to. How many at-bats do we project for Haniger? That's it. I mean, can he crack 400? Because even that seems optimistic. He is. You talk about an off-injured player. Yeah, that's Haniger. Now he's in a good situation, but again, that's not even the point because it doesn't matter if you just aren't out there playing. He'll get the at bats if he's out there. He definitely, in terms of situation there, it's good. You can't like his offensive context though. That's the problem. It's not a great park. It's a good but not amazing lineup. So we'll see. He's not that far removed from having an amazing season, right? Back in 2021. I mean, it's not that long ago, but man, he hasn't even played half a season since then. So I would say for a guy who is getting up there, he's 33, I would put money on it. On him comeback player of the year, but if there's someone who's got the talent, it's him. So we'll see. But you've got to think. Here's the thing too: they're gonna manage his at bats, right? Because they just know he's not gonna last too long. So I like him as a streamer on occasion, but I don't know that I feel like I want to roster him because I just want it being more aggravating than anything. All right, Shades with a question here. Roster 2. We got to pick 2 of these guys. Detmers, Rodon, or Savale. I know it's tempting to put Rodon in there. I'm just off of him. And it's not because like he burned me last year. I only drafted him in one league last year, and it was just a free league. It wasn't a league where I kind of just waited on pitching, and that wound up biting me. I've been big on Detmers, and it's just kind of aggravating how inconsistent he's been. But I still think he can be solid. Savale, I think I'll take the I'll take the chance that he finds something in Tampa and that he can help your ratios. You're not getting strikeouts there, but I don't think he's going to blow up your ERA like Rodon could. And then there's the injury risk. So I'm going to avoid the aggravating factor there, Rodon, and I'll take the other two. All right, do a couple more questions here. James, as a Marlins fan, do you think Yuri will shake off these weird injuries and setbacks? I hope so. I mean, of course I hope so. We all hope so, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if you have him in fantasy, if you're a Marlins fan or a Mets fan or whatever. I mean, you want to see this guy pitch, don't you? 6'7", throws 100 miles per hour. I mean, he could be this generation's Randy Johnson. You just want to see him pitch. You don't want a guy who's so young, too. So young to all of a sudden have these elbow problems and it's a weird blister in the fingernail. I mean, that's not something to be panicked about. But when the arm starts acting up, then yeah, that's time to worry. So I am concerned. I'd be lying if I'd say I'm not. When we see guys who don't even talk about feeling soreness and all this, all of a sudden out of the blue, like the Sandy Alcantara thing, that kind of came out of the blue. And, you know, it wasn't a big deal made about him feeling a certain way or having these issues up until it happened. They were just like, yeah, he's feeling some discomfort. And then it's like, oh, yeah, he's having Tommy John. He's out for the year. It's like, with Yuri, I'm definitely worried. You got to be worried. I mean, the guy throws that hard. Doesn't matter how big and strong he is. You've got to be worried. So I don't mind taking him around 12. I think yes, you have to take a chance on a guy like that there. So I feel that, yeah. But man, I really would wait. And even if they say, okay, they're going to put him out there, I wouldn't put him out in his first start. Let's wait and see if he doesn't feel anything else, right? So I'm nervous with Yuri, but I'm hoping for the best. I'm definitely hoping for the best out of anybody. Yeah, definitely. I mean, just want to see this guy pitch, don't you? So, all right, we do have a couple more games left. So as far as who's going, Boston, Seattle will be a late game. Colorado, Arizona also defending NL champs, and then Cleveland, Oakland. I'm sure a few people will watch that game. Right now, it's the Cubs taking on the Rangers, and it's Cubs 1-0. And trying to get to the box score here. I hate how Savant, because it's what I use for my stats. MLB.com, you just go to it. I hate how Savant puts up all the stats you don't actually care about. I just want to see the score, like who scored. Justin Steele is pitching, of course, for the Cubs, going through scoreless so far. Nate Eovaldi, not too bad. He's given up 1 run. It looks like the Cubs scored on Dansby Swanson, drove in a run. But not much happening other than that just yet. But it's early. It's the top of the 4th inning. One thing I do think I want to point out is interesting. Of course, we know Wyatt Langford in the lineup and hitting officially 5th in his first game. And Evan Carter, obviously in the lineup too, he's hitting 8th. So Evan Carter had, his ADP was, of course, above Langford because we weren't sure about Langford. We saw Langford's ADP like rocket over the last couple of weeks, which it should have. And I was Carter over Langford, but now you got to like where Langford's hitting and the way Langford's been hitting. Got to wonder if Langford winds up being the better fantasy pick, but also just fantasy value. So we'll see if that sticks. But also, I thought it's worth noting that for the Cubs, Christopher Morel, DH, not taking the field, third base. This is good for Cubs fans and the pitching staff. But Madrigal, I guess, was healthy enough. He did start at third base today, but Morel hitting cleanup. So this is a good thing for Morel, right? We weren't quite sure. Like the Cubs don't seem to really know what to do with him. If he's going to DH and hit cleanup, that's probably the best case scenario you could imagine for him. So Morel, definitely a name to keep an eye on. All right, and do one more here. Thoughts on Casey Mize? Well, if you watched any of the videos I put out over the last 2-3 weeks that talk about pitching specifically, I probably mentioned Mize at least once somewhere. I'm all over him. I drafted him. There's probably 3 4 players that I just grabbed whenever I could. The guys I have the most exposure to in fantasy, and I'm talking best ball too, like underdog drafts and wherever. Casey Mize is on that list. He's in my top 5. So I'm all over Mize. My worry was that maybe they would either A, not put him in the rotation to start the season. Well, okay, that's solved. He's in the rotation. And B, limit his innings, and that remains to be seen. Will they just put him out there for 5, and that's it? Pull him 6, maybe that's his max. But if he's able to go 5, 6 effective innings every time out, then yeah, he can absolutely help you. So my thought is I'm all over Casey Mize. I'm being cautiously optimistic though. Better pickup over Jared Jones. I mean that's tough because Jared Jones, being a rookie, of course. I don't know what are we going to get from Jared Jones. So I know lights out in spring, but how many guys have we seen lights out in spring training, and then when the lights come on in the regular season, we'll have some struggles. He'll be more up and down. I know Jones is getting a little more hype right now, but I'm going Mize over Jones. I would ideally like to have some exposure to both, but if you only play in one league, which is totally reasonable thing that I don't do, I'm going to go Mize over Jones right now. I like them both, but I will go Mize. And it's your typical Roto League. Yeah, you got to think wins too. I mean, the Pirates are exciting now because they have Jared Jones. They have O'Neal Cruz is back. Henry Davis. They have some exciting names, but how many wins are we really getting there? I think I feel better about the Tigers' chance of pulling out wins over the Pirates still. So that's kind of a tiebreaker for me too. And of course, experience, right? Mize being older, having some major league experience. And then James, which prospects have the better year, Caminero or Holiday? And does this come down to just who gets the call first, who gets more, playing time early in the year? I don't think so. And I'm going to go Holiday because I just think even besides, age is not an issue. They're the same. I think Holiday just looks a little bit more major league ready. And as far as the hit tool, I mean, I'm not going to talk offense. You could argue and say, yeah, the Orioles have the better offense than the Rays. And overall, that might be true, but it's not a big difference. Not a difference maker for me. I just think Holiday is just ready, man. That he's just going to come in, and I think he's just immediately going to start hitting. Caminero going to be, I think, a little bit more inconsistent and fluctuate, but and there's also the fact that the Rays are, once he does get put on the roster, are you going to be sure Caminero is going to be out there every single day? Probably not. So I'm going to go Holiday right now as far as better year. Yeah, things happen, so don't worry about that. It is a long season. It's going to be a long season, which is great because that's what we're here for. This is day 1. So just want to get a quick breakdown, answer some of y'all questions, and just let you know, we're going to go live a lot more, do some Q&A. Going to start doing, especially on Sundays for Waiver Wire, to answer your waiver questions, because I know for some of you, waivers run every day, and it doesn't matter. For some of you, it's a weekly thing. Usually Sunday night is critical. But going to try to answer as many questions as possible, trade questions, and of course those videos coming out soon. So appreciate everybody being on here, and thank you to all for sticking around. If you happen to see that one video that I accidentally uploaded, the rough draft, with very, very, very rough draft. Yeah, that was actually pretty hysterical. Now I went back and watched it. So hey, it happens. But yeah, I'm glad to be doing this. Love talking baseball with y'all. So leave some comments if you want. Leave some on the community. I'm about to do some posts here and go catch some more baseball. Hope y'all do too. Video just came out today, by the way, talking about waiver wire, my early before the season waiver wire picks that now the season's has started. Go ahead and try to grab these guys ahead of time. So check that out, and another one coming out tomorrow. So check those out. If you haven't already, subscribe. If you haven't told other fantasy baseball fans that please spread the word. Trying to grow this channel to be like our football channel, which if you play fantasy football, check out the Fantasy Endgame for football as well. All right, guys. Appreciate you.